Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're jumping straight into the recent Singaporean general election, GE 2025.
Yeah, a really significant one.
Definitely. The first big test for the new PM, Lawrence Wong, and, well, another chapter for the PAP, right?
For sure. And
Yeah.
all against that backdrop of, cost of living concerns, inequality talks, housing.
Housing, always housing, and that ongoing conversation about political openness, too.
Absolutely. And the results, well, they give us a lot to chew on.
So the PP secured a pretty strong majority again.
Yeah, 65.57% of the vote, which translated to 87 seats. Solid showing.
And the Workers' Party, still the main opposition voice.
That's right. They're the only other party elected, holding 10 seats with about nearly 15% of the vote. Other parties like PSP, FDP, less successful this time.
So today, we really want to get under the hood, don't we? Look
Yeah.
at the campaign strategies.
Exactly. What were the different parties trying to do? How important was their messaging? And of course, the whole online angle.
Right, that digital side seems bigger than ever. How did they try and connect with you, the voter, and, well, did it work?
Let's start with the BAP then, their campaign. It seemed like PM Wong had a very consistent core message.
Yeah, that need for a strong mandate, stable government, especially with all the global economic jitters.
Precisely. Things like the U.S.-China trade stuff, those potential Trump tariffs, the so-called Liberation Day tariffs some analysts mentioned, big external pressures.
So the message was basically steady hands needed.
Pretty much. PM Wong himself talked about trust, stability, and confidence after the election. It's a message that likely resonates, given Singapore's position.
Tapping into that desire for security, maybe.
I think so. And it plays to their historical strengths, doesn't it? Economic success, relatively clean governance. That's the brand.
But they're not immune to criticism. People are definitely talking more about housing costs, elitism, foreign worker competition.
Oh, for sure. Those issues are definitely on the public radar. But it seems the PIP tried to address some of that.
How so?
Well, fielding some fresh faces, new candidates, trying to appeal to younger voters, maybe.
Right.
And those budget measures, the cash handouts and vouchers.
Right, the pre-election budget goodies.
Yeah. And overall, that unwavering, steady messaging, as you put it, probably did contribute significantly to their strong result. Stability in uncertain times.
It's a powerful narrative when things feel shaky globally.
Definitely. When you've got geopolitical headwinds brewing, maybe voters hesitate to, rock the boat too much. Even the PSP noted those uncertainties.
Okay, let's pivot to the Workers' Party.
Oh.
Their goal wasn't to form the government, right? More about checks and balances.
Yeah, they were clear on that, aiming for a stronger opposition voice in Parliament.
And their rallies. We saw those images of massive crowds.
Huge crowds, absolutely. But as we always say, rally size doesn't automatically mean votes follow. It's one indicator, but not the whole story.
So what else stood out about their strategy?
Well, their online game was really noticeable. They seemed to really embrace social media.
Using it as a powerful equalizer, I think they called it.
Something like that, yeah. Lots of TikTok, infographics, explainer videos, trying to create that more personal connection, that human touch online.
Interesting. Trying to leverage digital platforms where maybe the playing field feels a bit more level.
Exactly. It's fascinating to think about how effective that digital push was, and if you can see a link between online buzz and actual votes in different areas.
Speaking of different areas, Tampines GRC was interesting. First time the WP contested there, led by Faisal Minab.
Right, and it was close. A narrow loss for them in a four-way fight, actually. PIP got just over 52%, WP around 47%.
And there was that strange online framing sometimes, wasn't there? Like a showdown between two Malay Muslim leaders.
Yeah, that narrative popped up, but the WP seemed very deliberate in pushing back against that, emphasizing representation for everyone.
Trying to keep the focus on broader issues, not just identity politics.
It seemed that way. A tricky line to walk in a diverse place like Singapore.
There was also that incident, the leaked telegram messages from their candidate in Jalan Kayu.
Ah, yes, the vulgarity-laced messages. He did apologize publicly.
And despite that, he still lost relatively narrowly, around 48.5%.
Yeah, quite close again. But interestingly, in their existing strongholds, Sengkang GRC and Hugang SMC, they actually increased their winning margins.
So consolidating their base.
Looks like it.
Yeah.
Suggests a real entrenchment of support there, even if they didn't pick up new GRCs. Those narrow losses elsewhere also show they're competitive, though.
Okay, let's talk Progress Singapore Party, the PSP. A very different story for them compared to 2020.
Yeah, quite a drop-off. They contested 13 seats, didn't win any, and lost the 2 NCMP seats they had previously.
What happened there? Their 2020 strategy seemed quite effective.
It did. Back then, they really tapped into that desire for more opposition. Plus, they had the high profiles of Tan Cheng-bok and Lee San-yang. That generated buzz.
Especially in West Coast GRC back then.
Exactly. They got over 48% there. But a big factor this time was the boundary redrawing before GE 2025.
Ah, the electoral boundaries changed.
Yes, the new West Coast Jurong West GRC absorbed some areas considered PAP strongholds. That likely made it much tougher terrain for the PSP.
And their candidates this time maybe didn't capture the public imagination in the same way.
It seems that way. Less visible personalities compared to 2020, perhaps. And their campaign focus was very much on national policies.
It's like the universal minimum wage reversing the GST hike.
Right. But thinking back, with those global economic worries we mentioned, maybe that focus didn't quite hit the mark for enough voters.
Compared to the BAP stability message.
Possibly. When people are worried about, say, tariffs or recession, debating long-term national policy might feel less urgent. It's a tough call.
And they had leadership changes just before the election, too, didn't they? Leon Monway reelected as party chief.
Yeah, leadership transitions close to an election can sometimes affect momentum or strategy clarity, another potential factor.
And then you have the smaller opposition parties. It seems like an even tougher climb for them.
Definitely. Some get dismissed online as mosquito parties, which is pretty harsh, but reflects the challenge they face gaining traction.
And the issue of vote splitting comes up again, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like in Angmo-Kyo GRC with multiple parties running.
Yeah, multi-cornered fights often dilute the opposition vote, making it harder for any non-PAP candidate to win. It's a perennial issue.
So visibility, resources, name recognition. It's a huge hurdle for these smaller groups. There's even talk of voters maybe penalizing them just for being small or less established.
That perception exists, yeah. It's tough to break through that cycle.
This all brings us back nicely to the role of online presence in messaging. It feels absolutely central now.
Undeniably. Since GE 2020, and especially with the pandemic limiting physical rallies back then, digital outreach has just exploded in importance.
We see politicians on podcasts, using social media personalities, trying to seem more relatable, like PM Wong doing podcast appearances.
Exactly that. It's part of trying to connect on a different level. And the platforms themselves have shifted, haven't they? From blogs years ago to Facebook, now TikTok and podcasts are huge.
And politicians trying to jump on trends, like Health Minister Ong Ye-kung on TikTok.
Yeah, trend jacking, becoming content creators themselves. It's all part of the modern campaign playbook.
But, and this is a flashy online presence doesn't automatically win you votes, does it?
No, absolutely not. We saw that quite clearly with Engkok Song in the presidential election, didn't we? Great online engagement, but it didn't translate into the win.
So credibility, track record, actually addressing people's core concerns, that stuff still matters most.
Fundamentally, yes. Online reach is a tool, a powerful one, but it has to be backed by substance. And you can't ignore the downsides of online campaigning either.
Like misinformation, foreign interference.
Big concerns. Governments try to tackle it with laws like FACA and KOFMA itself being debated during the campaign, of course.
Right, the Online Falsehoods Act.
Yeah. And they banned deepfakes and digitally altered content during the election period, too. But ultimately, it relies a lot on the public being savvy and discerning.
A vigilant public is key.
Crucial. And remember, even with national social media reach, elections here are won or lost at the constituency level.
Ah, good point. So that old-fashioned ground game, walking the blocks, meeting residents, still vital.
Absolutely essential. Online complements it, but it doesn't replace that face-to-face connection within the local community.
So looking at the opposition's challenges overall,
Yeah.
what are the recurring themes?
Well, you've got the short official campaign periods. That makes it hard to build momentum.
And the electoral boundary changes we mentioned, which can be unpredictable.
Right. Then there's just the sheer difficulty of getting public attention, media coverage, compared to the incumbent PIP.
Plus, leadership changes close to an election, like with PSP, can be disruptive.
And that perception issue around smaller mosquito parties. Also, as the opposition does get stronger, they often face much higher scrutiny, higher standards are applied.
And the resource gap online. Is that significant?
Oh, definitely. The PAP likely has far greater resources for sophisticated online campaigns. Maybe micro-targeting, shaping opinions online in ways smaller parties just can't match.
And while not maybe a direct strategy this time, things like POFMA directions in past elections can sometimes feed that feeling of an uneven playing field, can't they?
That perception certainly exists among some. And finally, you have those sensitivities around race and religion mixing with politics, like the foreign interference warnings related to the Tampions contest. Complex stuff.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive on GE2025 strategies, we saw the PAP leaning hard on stability and experience in uncertain times.
Yeah, a classic incumbent message tailored for the moment.
The Workers' Party used a more multi-pronged approach groundwork, plus that big digital engagement push.
Trying to solidify their base and perhaps reach new voters online.
And the PSP, along with the smaller parties, seemed to struggle more to find that resonance and overcome those structural hurdles.
They face significant headwinds, both political and possibly strategic.
So the big takeaway seems to be effective messaging, strong online game, totally crucial now.
Absolutely critical components. But as we've hammered home, they aren't enough on their own.
They need that bedrock of credibility, addressing what voters really care about,
Wow.
connecting both online and on the ground.
Exactly. It's a whole package. Digital reach plus real-world trust and connection.
Which really leaves you thinking, doesn't it? Looking at all these strategies and the results.
Yeah.
What does this election tell us about where Singaporean politics is heading?
Good question. How will parties need to change how they connect with you, the voter, next time around?
And importantly, what role will you play in sorting through all the information, the messaging, and engaging with it all as things continue to evolve?
Definitely something to ponder. Until our next deep dive.